And I'm back. Glad to see you all back here again. What we're going to do today is we're going to change the pressure tank on a rural well. Now, a rural well will have the well itself. There'll be a pump that moves that water up out of the well into a pressure tank, which is a holding tank that delivers water into the house when the pump's not running. So the pump will run to fill it. It'll reach a certain pressure. It'll turn off, and then when you run your taps, you have a certain volume of water, so many gallons that'll run into the house without the pump running. And that saves the life of the pump. If your pump had to run all the time, it would wear the pump down prematurely. So what they have is a pressure tank, and it has a pre-charge of air in it. And there's a bladder in the bottom where the water enters. And it's easier to show you on paper. Here, I'll show you. Okay, here's just a very simple schematic showing your pressure tank, the water pump, the well, the pressure gauge, and the pressure switch. And there's the line going out of your tank into the house. Okay, so you start running water in the house. And as you run water out, this decreases in pressure and decreases in volume. So the water is getting used in the house. The pump is off. And that's the whole purpose of this tank, is that pump doesn't run all the time. So between 50 and 30, depending on the size of the tank, that could be, a couple of gallons, or it could be 20, 30 gallons. They say you can never have too big a pressure tank for a well system. So, it depends on how long you want this to discharge before the pump kicks in. So the bigger the tank you have, when you go to replace it, the longer it's going to drain down before the pressure drops such that the contacts are going to close in this switch and start the pump again to fill the bladder again. So what we're doing here is we're installing a 20-gallon pressure tank, and that holds about maybe 14 gallons of water in the bladder and air above it. So you got about 14 gallons to work with there. So, if you fill up your kitchen sink and you do some hand washing and whatever else you're doing in there, then most likely this is just going to drop in pressure a bit, move water into the house, and the pump's not going to start. So you use a large volume of water, you're going to get to a point where you've used quite a bit of water, and all of a sudden it gets down and the pressure drops to the cut-in pressure. And in these systems, if it's 50 to cut out, it's probably 30 to cut in. So you're running about a 20 psi differential between cut out and cut in. So when it hits 30 psi, the contacts in the pressure switch will close. It'll send power over, and it'll start the pump. It'll bring water out of the well into the system and expand that bladder again against the air pressure until it hits 50 psi. And then the pressure switch will open those contacts and stop the pump, and you're back to using the water again until the pressure drops, and it just keeps repeating itself that way. Now, in the case of a defective bladder, that's open, and now we've got water up here where we're not supposed to have it. We've lost our air charge, basically, because whenever we are opening a tap in the house now, we're getting water and we're getting air that was pre-charged in here. And then whenever the system runs again, it doesn't have the bladder and the air pressure to work with. It basically fills this up with water right to the top. Every bit of this gets filled with water, and it gets what they called waterlogged or water wedged, and there's no air pressure to push it down. So what happens is, so basically over here, just if you have a volume of compressed air over water, what that compressed air is always trying to do is equalize itself. So it's always trying to reduce itself down to atmospheric pressure. So if it's held at 50 psi and there's a little bit of a leak at the bottom here and that water wants out, well, that air is going to expand, right? But when you don't have any air, water is hardly compressible. It is compressible, but to such a small amount. It's, like if you studied hydraulics, they'll say that water or fluids are compressible only to a little bit, but it's negligible in the case of, water. For it's down in the millionths of a gram, how much it's compressible. So basically, when you have this tank at 50 psi and the bladder's broken and it's completely full of water, well, you're at 50 psi on the gauge. This is reading 50 psi. You're going to run a little bit of water out of here, and what's going to happen? You're going to run a little bit of water in the house. And it takes no amount of volume, really, to drop that pressure to the cut-in pressure. You might only have to use half a liter of water instead of 14 gallons. before the pressures drop from 50 to 30, and this switch turns the pump on again. So it's going to short cycle. The pump's going to continually run, or it's going to run on very short cycles. Okay, and we're going to watch this pressure here, and this is with the old defective tank, and you're going to see that we're running pretty much on pump pressure, not the tank pressure, because it's going to be periodic spurts of water and stuff like that, and it's not going to be a steady stream. So it'll come out like that. See, it's picking up there. That's pump pressure. See that? See that? It's taking right off. I don't want to get soaking wet, but see, it only ran a little bit off of whatever air was in the tank, and then all of a sudden it's triggered the pump to run. And so that's what you're going to get. You're going to get these irregular cycles of water like that, and that's one indicator that you have a bad tank. And I'll show you something else that'll tell you that it's bad when we're out there. But that's a pretty good indicator right there. Okay, so what I did the other day when I discovered that the system was operating the way it was, I went out and I just took this cap off and I touched that little Schrader valve. And instead of air coming out of it, I got water coming out of it. So right away I knew, okay, the bladder's broken. That's another test. I said there would be another way to tell, and that's it right there. You can go right to your pressure tank. And if you touch that little Schrader valve and water comes out of it, you know that this bladder has been compromised, okay? Now, in the old days, tanks didn't have bladders. There was just a steel tank, and that you put an air charge into it and you'd fill it up with water, and it would work the same way. Only thing is, they realized that water in contact with the inside of the steel tank wasn't good, and there was a number of reasons for that. Corrosion was one of them. But in these cases here where you have a bladder inside of a steel tank, there's places where water can get trapped between the bladder and the tank where it's not supposed to be, okay, all the way around here. And so you get a leak in this bladder, and the water gets down in around here. And you can still, put a little air in the tank and use it for a while, but what happens is that water sometimes doesn't flush out, and you can end up with a bacteria situation in your tank. And so that's not healthy. You can end up with, getting sick from your own well water if there's, water trapped in between the bladder and the tank, over a prolonged period of time. It may not happen in a week or two, while you're waiting to order another pressure tank, but it is something that can happen. The other thing too is when this bladder breaks, it often breaks, in a straight line, but it can break in little pieces. Those little pieces can end up going out into the discharge line into the house and clogging up taps and stuff like that. And those little pieces, when they break off, they can even block the inlet and outlet to the tank. So when you have pressure running haphazardly, like it is when you're running pretty much on the pressure of the pump, not on the pressure tank, or you open that Schrader valve and you have water coming out instead of air, your bladder has gone. It's time to get another tank, and for those reasons. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go out. I'm going to take you to the well. The well at this place here is in a little underground concrete bunker, basically, that was made for it. And we're going to go out there. I'm going to take you down there with me. We're going to take out the old pressure tank, and we're gonna hook it all up, and we'll show you how that's done. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off power to the well pump. Okay, so it's the second one down on the left-hand side. It's a 15 amp breaker, so it's this one here. All right, you see these breakers? There's two breakers in one spot. These are mini breakers. They take up less room in the panel, as opposed to maybe some people may be more used to this type of breaker where there's just one breaker on one spot, but you can save place in your panel with these new style breakers that have two on one. So that one there is the well pump. Okay, let's go around the other side of the building and get down in that well. Okay. All right. Never fails when I start a video, the crows start cawing. So there's this insulated cover that sits down over this opening in this concrete box. So just a quick look in there. We've got the well casing in the middle, the pump, the pressure switch, the pressure gauge, and we have a T that joins all that together, and then we have the pressure tank. So let's get down there and take a better look. Okay, I'll bring you guys down here. Now, okay, so here's the well casing, like I say, the pump, the pressure switch, the gray box over there, pressure gauge, of course, and then here's our tank. Now, another thing I can do just double safe is I've got the breaker turned off at the panel, but I can also turn off the power here too. It's most likely already off at the breaker, but that's the secondary one. Okay, before I get started, I'm going to explain what this little arrangement is here of electrical stuff. That's not normal to a pump house, but this is a concrete box, as you can see, down in the ground. It's insulated top and bottom and sides with styrofoam, and we get really cold winters here. So this is the heating system for the well pump. Now, we keep an incandescent bulb down here, and just an incandescent bulb running in this enclosed space in the winter is sometimes enough to keep everything from freezing down in here. Now, as a backup to that, what we have is heating tape, and those are those cables that you run against the pipes that warm up to a certain degree to help keep pipes from freezing. Okay, so how this is arranged is all the power for it comes out of the main panel here for the well pump system. It comes to a GFI outlet, and then everything is wired out of that GFI outlet. There's a plug here. This is where we plug our heat tape into. And of course, there's the incandescent bulb in a socket. We keep an open bulb here for the reason that it'll distribute heat better than if it was caged, okay? All right, now, it goes over to this junction box. Now, what I did was I ran the controls for both of these, for the light and for the heat tape, up into the bedroom of the house. Now, the people that live here are elderly, and they used to come down here and check on this stuff, and they would, dig out the hatch at one point, in the winter and plug stuff like that in, but, it was getting beyond them to do that. So what I did was I ran these lines, and I buried this conduit, and I ran it into the house, and I put switches behind the bedroom door inside. And what it is they can, turn on this and have the light on. We have these long life bulbs that'll last most of the winter usually. Periodically, the guy that comes to shovel the snow might, check and lift the hatch and say, yeah, the light's still on, or change the bulb at that point too. But usually these bulbs last the whole winter, like about 5-6 months. And the other thing is the switched tape. So usually they just start the winter, October, November, they turn on the bulb. And if they get a particularly cold snap, what they'll do is they'll turn on the heat tape. And that's just a simple switch. So basically there's actually a 3-gang switch that I put in the bedroom, and the third switch is for the heating cables on the roof. And that was another thing they used to have to go outside and plug in and all that kind of stuff. So I've consolidated those 3 heating systems for them to make life easier. Anyway, that's what that is. But with this breaker off, power to this is off now too. All right, so what we're gonna do, look at this tank. You tap on it, and we're gonna take a look here. And we're gonna see if we have air here. Let's take a look, see what we have. Look at that. That's supposed to be air, and that is definitely water in there. It's water wedge, so it's done. That bladder is definitely broken. This thing was made with a hole in the floor that goes down over the bank. It's just a water drain, so there's a short hose I'm just gonna put in there. But let's just drain down the system. So we'll open this up. Okay, so the water is supposed to be drained out of there, but I have my doubts that it's all out of there. We might have to drill a hole in the tank and drain the rest of it out before we can lift it out of here, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, I'm gonna open this union right here. Just a bit more water coming out of there. Might be easier than getting that one down there. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so we got that. Now so the tank and this T and that hose were all disconnected from the pump system, but that's still full of water. See that? See this here? Still full of water. It's not in any hurry to drain out, because what's happened is the bladders collapsed in here and the water's all in around behind it. There we go. Yeah. Now it's starting to drain out a little bit. Yeah, it had no way for the air to get in. All right, we'll just let that run out, and when it's empty, we'll lift the tank out of here. Go. Oh, this looks like maybe one of those tanks that has a replaceable bladder that you can change. I didn't know that, and I didn't investigate whether or not there was a bladder available, but unbolt it there and the bladder comes out. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go ahead with the new change, but I am going to hang on to the tank while I check for a replaceable bladder. Okay, so there's the T. We could unscrew this out of here, and this whole ugly apparatus is going to go back in there. It's got lead solder in it. I really don't like the look of that, but it's not my place, and I'm not going to get around to changing that this time. I've just got to get the water back on, but in a perfect world, you would change this out with lead-free brass and lead-free fittings in the copper lines. Okay, so here's the new tank. It's a 20-gallon tank. It's made by Wellwright, Flexcon Industries, Randolph, Massachusetts. So that should be a good tank. Now, if you look down here, all right, so we see in here they have the inlet to the tank blocked. So just a little cap there. Okay, and so like I said a moment ago, we're just going to reuse that same old T for now, but there is it's put in my head that it's time to upgrade the pipes in this house and get away from these lead joints in the fittings. So I'm going to put that on my list of things to do, but for right now I got to get the water going again. So that'll be another project. Boy, I love when there's another project in line. Oh, it's always another project, isn't there? Okay, we're going to put some Teflon tape on here. Teflon tape around here. A few times like that. Okay. And let's see here. Yeah, it's quite an octopus. It's quite an octopus, but I think I can turn it. Let's see here. Get it. I'm going to put a pipe fitting here, and I'm going to put the pressure switch right here. And I'll tell you why. This has a larger diameter hole than the 1/8 pipe that feeds out of the pump casing to the pressure switch currently. And what we're finding with this well, we get a lot of sediment in this well. And that small diameter line has clogged up a few times and caused a malfunction in the system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take out this plug right here, put this in, and I have a new 3050 pressure switch that I'm going to put in here. See, that'll screw right on the bottom of here like that and into there. And the other one had the same fitting on the bottom of the pressure switch, but it was reduced down to a 1/8 line. So to try and avoid that sediment clogging it, we'll change that here now. So, all right. And I'm going to put that in the switch first. So I bought a new switch. I'm going to have to run a new power line over to it. The one that's in there, the switch is located on the back side of the pump, and I don't think the cable's going to reach, so I'm going to just run a new piece of cable over to reach this. It'll be fine. Put that in there first. And we're going to hold this. It's important to hold that nut so that you don't twist the internals of the switch when you tighten the pipe into it. Same thing. Don't turn it with the top. Turn it with the pipe. There. Okay. Okay. Let's go down in here. Let's go down in here. Uh-oh. What did I come up against? Okay, here we are. Here we go. Here we are. You guys want to come down and see what's going on? Okay, so this tank's sitting on a bit of a platform, so I had to move that around a little bit. Now I'm going to make that connection right here, so we know we've got it located right. And then we'll work on the other connections. Get that union together. I'm going to tighten that in a moment. Now my main concern here is, see this will go right back into the pump. I'll put some Teflon tape on that. And then it's the liquid tight from this switch over to the side of the motor. And what I went and got was I went and got an electrical box here. And that'll be a junction box. So I'll mount that on the side of the motor. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so there's this threaded piece that held the other pressure switch to the motor. So I'm just going to put it through the box like that. Then there's a little spacer, and it threads into the side of the motor. There's holes in the side of the motor that are threaded. I'm just going to put it in there like that, pass the wires out through here. The box is mounted on the side of the motor, and there's the two leads for the motor coming out here. I'm gonna cut those ends off, and I'm gonna splice that into the cable that's gonna come over to the switch. Okay guys, I've leapt ahead of you here a little bit. I put that liquid tight from the disconnect here. Disconnect is wired up there, and got that liquid tight running down to, I got a box I mounted on the side of the motor, and we've got the pressure switch right here, liquid tight to both sides of it, so power comes from that disconnect down to here. It's line 1 and line 2 on the outside, and then the two center ones go to the leads on the motor. Okay, so everything's hooked up, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shut the hose, make sure that's shut. And I'm going to shut the valve that goes out to the house. Okay, and the only thing left is the cover. Now we may have to adjust the switch. So, okay, I went to the instructions and it says that, okay, so the pre-charge in this tank above the bladder is 38 PSI from the factory, okay? And that is 2 PSI lower than a 40 PSI cut-in, if that's what your pressure switch was demanding in the system. However, I don't want to go with a 40 PSI cut-in. I want to go to a 30 because I put in a switch that has a 30 cut-in and a 50 cut-out, okay? So the PSI in the tank to start with, before you even put water in it, has to be 2 PSI below the cut-in, which has to be 28 PSI, so we're going to let out some air. No, it's leaking like a sieve. Anyway, it's coming up around 36, 37 PSI like it says. All right, so we want 28, so we're just going to leave that down a bit. Now, remember, that's the air above the bladder. There's no water in the bladder yet. That's about 30, 35 still. $32. $32 it says there, let me see. 32. $30, we're real close. Okay, and that's just a little under 30. This is probably about 28 there. Let's just try that one more time. Yeah, it's just under 30. I'm going to call that good. All right, and we're going to put that cap back on there. Shut. The valve to the drain is shut. Our other connections are made. Now, I don't think we lost a lot of water out of the pump when we disconnected this. I don't know if we lost the prime or not, but I'm going to add a little bit of water to the top of the pump casing. Okay. All right, so we got everything hooked up. 28-pound pre-charge in the tank. Water in the pump to prime it, everything hooked up. And so basically the wiring that I did when you weren't here was I took power from this disconnect and I put it to one side of the switch. And there's 2 terminals in there. One is line and the other is neutral. This is 120 volts. And then the 2 center terminals go to the motor right there, okay? All right, I'm gonna turn on the power and hopefully this is gonna run. Climbing slowly. Should cut out soon. The gauge says 54. Supposed to cut out at 50. Might need an adjustment, we'll see. Could be the gauge. Okay, that cutout is too high. So let's open the valve towards the house. And we'll see where our cut-in is. It's starting to run water out into the house. Okay. Okay, I don't have a tap open over there, so I'll open this little drain. It's supposed to be a 30-50 switch, because it says right on the packaging 30-50. Yeah, that's a 40-60 switch. And watch that climb to 60 and cut out. It's the wrong switch in the 30-50 box. That can happen, I guess. I can adjust that. It's just an adjustment. I can do that in a moment. That switch is in the wrong packaging. That puts a stain in my underwear, man. I hate that. Where's the little, there's a piece of paper there. It came with it. Look at this here. It says, right there in the yellow, look, it says 30 to 50 PSI. And there was others, you know, in the store that were 40 to 60 and 20 to 40, and I picked a 30 to 50, and this one's running 40 to 60. So we're gonna have to change that. And there is an adjustment on it, so we can do that. Okay, so obviously the switch that we bought from the store is cut in at 40, cut out at 60, but our tank was the pre-charge in the tank is 28 for a 30 cut in. So we're going to adjust this to a 30-50. And how we're going to do that is we're going to look in here inside the cover. And if you look at, okay, you see that actually it goes kind of like this way. You have the large spring on the one side and the small spring on the other. You see that? This is the big one. So as you turn down number one for a higher cut in and cut off. So we're gonna, instead of screwing this big one down, we're gonna slacken it up a few turns. So we're gonna reduce that cut in and cut out. So it's that other little one only changes the cut out. It doesn't change the cut in. This one here changes the cut in and cut out. So we're gonna loosen that. Okay, so I've got the power off, and I'm gonna reduce the cut in and cut out pressure by turning this counterclockwise. That's a half. We're gonna go 1.5, approximately. It's like 2 turns. See if I can get on a little better here. 2.5. Let's try about 3 turns. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, I didn't film it all, but it went to 55 and turned off, so we're going to go a little more. Go a little more. I've got the power turned off again. Let's try a little bit. Maybe one more turn. Okay. And we're running the water down. That's about 34, maybe 33, 34. Where it kicked in. That might be okay. Let's just see where it stops. So what are we running? About 34 to 54? I think I'm happy with that. Let's go with that for now, 34 to 54. And I'll check it tomorrow and we'll see how it goes. But I think that's a wrap for tonight. The new tank's working well. Some new liquid tight lines and some new wiring to that new pressure switch. I think what happened is it's one of these blister packs that you can open without breaking the blister pack. And at the store, someone was probably looking at them and they swapped that one into the wrong case. because it's just one of those little clamshells that, you know, you can pop open. And because I was very careful, I wanted the 30-50, but it's obviously a 40 to 60, but that's the factory setting on the, you know, they're all the same. It's just that they set them differently, so that's okay. And I've shown you how to fine tune them. And anyway, hopefully this whole video today has helped somebody. Like I say, if you're not comfortable with any of this, get somebody else to do it, especially the electrical work. Don't do that yourself. And let us know what you think down in the comments. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And we'll see you again here very soon on Everyday Projects. Bye for now.